Good day, everybody. This is the Ecclesiarch here, back with some more Warpforge, and today I'm doing a different type of video. I want to talk about 5 cards that I would like to see changed in the next patch, because the next patch is like maybe a week away now. And on top of that, I also want to give my suggestions on how I would like these cards to be changed. Now, keep in mind that I'm going to be explaining in detail why I think that these cards need change, and also the suggestions. I will also explain why I think this is the way it should be done. And also I want you to consider a couple of things before we begin. Number one is that this is not my only opinion. Before just slapping my own ideas on there, I talked to a lot of people about this, including on the Discord, to some of my friends who play, to some people who play a lot of card games. So I made sure to talk to a lot of people to hear their opinions so that I don't like give some bullshit suggestions, all right? Now, on top of that, another thing that I would like to mention is that, of course, this does not cover all the cards that need to be addressed. There's a lot more that needs to be addressed in the game. However, you know, as they say, so it needs time, right? So one at a time. Well, in this case, we're just going to be taking a look at 5 cards. There's a lot more work to be done, but for sure, this is a place to start, all right? And today's theme kinda is some of the legendary cards that really need to be changed. Once again, it does not include all of the bad legendaries, but these are like some iconic cards that really fail to live up to their name in terms of their popularity in lore and with the fan base and so on. So, without further ado, let's actually get into it, and let's start off with the Ultramarines. And I believe you guys already have guessed what this is going to be about. This is, of course, none other than Captain Sicarius. Now, Captain Sicarius has been receiving buffs and buffs after buff, basically, buff after buff. And yet, despite that, it's still unplayable. And nobody pretty much is playing that on the higher ranks. And there is a very simple reason for that. So if we take a look at Sicarius, so it's a 9 energy, 10-7-10. So stats are not bad for sure. However, his ability is to have invulnerable during your turn and has talent greatest deeds. And when you basically get the greatest deeds, what it does is it's an ephemeral card, and for 2 energy you can heal 5 to a friendly unit, so including your warlord, and if it's a troop you give it Vanguard. Now, the problem with this card is that it costs too much while offering no instant value, and in general that kind of formula does not work in the Everguild card games, because these card games are very fast, very aggressive, so something that just does nothing when you play it usually is not that good. Well, at least when it costs so much. If it was like a 3 energy unit with lower stats, sure, but this is a 9 energy unit. By the time you play this, your opponent is either just gonna ignore this and finish you off, or is just instantly gonna get removed. So in both cases, this card is not good as it is right now. So my suggestion would be the following. So first of all, the invulnerability and the talent can absolutely be removed. First of all, because that invulnerability is really nothing valuable. It's only valuable just like the talent if this card survives. So instead of the invulnerability, this card should definitely have Vanguard, because it's going to be able to protect your warlord that way and cannot just be ignored by your opponent. Now, on top of that, I think that the greatest deeds should not be a talent, it should be a codex. This way, you get the greatest deeds as soon as you play Sicarius on curve, so it gives you an extra reward. So obviously greatest deeds in that case would be more reliable, because you instantly get it with codex, and if you want more copies of that, you can generate it through energy refill, even though I think it would not be that beneficial. Now, as for the greatest deeds itself, obviously since it's now codex, it has to get rid of the ephemeral, because if it keeps getting ephemeral, it means that they just disappear from your hand at the end of the turn, which wouldn't make sense. So greatest deeds should not just be turned into a tactic. It should still hold the heal 5, but instead what it could do, it could have give the unit armor 2 until your next turn. So this would include the warlord. So what this would give you is that when you play Sicarius, not only would it give you a Vanguard, it would also buy your warlord some time to survive, like heal it for 5 and for 1 turn give it armor 2. This essentially gives you a survivability for a turn, like for sure, because once again, if you play Captain Sicarius and the opponent has a board, they can just hard remove it and just still go bashing on your face, right? In this case, you at least have an extra card to increase your survivability. You could just keep it in your hand and use it later on for more survivability. Once again, you could even slap it on Sicarius if he survives. So overall, this would be a much better card. Now, if anybody thinks that this is too overpowered, I would like to once again remind you that this is at 9 energy, and at 9 energy, usually the game is as good as over. It might last like 1 or 2 more turns, unless you're playing against something like Imhotech. So strong abilities and strong cards at 9 energy, it's not a bad thing, right? It's actually a pretty good thing. This is exactly what you would expect. Now, of course, you could just remove the armor 2 and just give it heal 5 and give Vanguard as it used to be. However, I think that it would be much less worth and much less effective, and it would probably not be played as much as it would be played if it were able to give actual armor. So I think that this change for Captain Sicarius would definitely be something that would make him much more interesting, viable, and much more playable on top of that. Now, right now, if you're thinking that you're being oppressed by Ultramarines, you're mostly being you're mostly having trouble with the aggro type of Ultramarine, like Uriel probably, and this would not be played on Uriel in any case, because this is not a card that you play on aggro. This is a card that you play on control. Anyways, let's now get to the next card on the list. Now, the next card, more like next cards actually, are going to be from the Black Legion. And I'm going to be discussing like 3 cards from the Black Legion actually, but let's start off with the more simple cards, and these are going to be Venom Crawler and Chaos Terminator. Now, Venom Crawler used to be a 6 energy 6/6, would reduce your stratagem cost by 1, like your stratagems cost 1 less, and recently it received a buff for 1 armor. And Chaos Terminator is basically a 6 energy 5/6/6, and it has Vanguard. Now, there is a very clear problem here. Now, the problem is that Venom Crawler, even before the buff, used to be the best 6-drop for Black Legion, like period. It used to be the best 6-drop. Now, it's even better than the Dark Apostle, by the way. So, the problem is that Everguild chose to buff Venom Crawler and neglected a different option that they could have done with the Chaos Terminator. The problem in general with buffing cards that are already good is that you're, in that case, not encouraging deck diversity, you're encouraging people to play the strong card even more. So what I think that Venom Crawler right now is kind of toxic. It's not like too overpowered, but it can definitely be obnoxious, because if somebody drops this and then slaps like a Abaddon's Chosen on it for camouflage, good luck getting rid of a 6 energy 6/8 with 1 armor. It's going to be absolutely obnoxious, and it can ramp up value very quickly. So I think that the Venom Crawler deserves to be reverted actually to how it was, and it's still going to be a very good unit because still everybody was playing Venom Crawler. So I think that it definitely can be reverted to what it was. Now, the Chaos Terminator, on the other hand, never made sense to me why this unit didn't have armor and they gave Venom Crawler the armor, because this is the Vanguard, right? This is the Chaos mid-game Vanguard option, or even late game Vanguard option, right? However, it's too squishy and it's unreliable. You drop this, the enemy drops like Eldar, for example, dropped their 6 energy 6/5 armor 2 flank, and it just takes this out while surviving itself, right? So it cannot compete at all with other units, and a lot of factions have very good Vanguard options like the Lich Guard, the Tyrant Guard, while Chaos basically suffers from that. So what I would suggest to be done, and sorry I forgot to add the name to the alternative version that I made, is that you could have the Chaos Terminator reduce the health by 1, so you can now have 5/6/5, but you could have 2 armor on it now as an alternative, so it's a strong Vanguard option. Alternatively, if you think that this is too strong, what could be done is you could have a 6 energy 5/6/6 as it was, but have armor 1. So you basically have 2 options. You can leave it as it is and add armor 1, or reduce the health by 1 and add armor 2. I think that that would be much more reliable, and it would also allow more Black Crusade plays, because when you play Black Crusade and it doesn't drop any front lines like Vanguards, you kind of not doing well, because that means you can still be taken out. The same problem with Sicarius, right? But now if you would have some strong Chaos Terminators, Black Crusade could actually be really good when it would drop these two very powerful front lines. So you should, as I said, I think Everguild should either give Chaos Terminator armor 1 or reduce the health and give armor 2. So you be the judge, guys, which would be better. Now, one of the main things that I want to be changed for Chaos, apart from these units, is, of course, Iscandar Kon. And Iscandar Kon kind of suffers from the same problems as Sicarius. It's been buffed and buffed, but basically it's not receiving any play despite that. The problem is that, once again, it's a 9 energy do nothing. You drop it and you hope to cheese the game the next turn with Artifice, and that Artifice is also random, and you can end up getting like very useless stratagems instead of something good. Because Black Legion have a lot of stratagems, right? So it's not a reliable thing at all right now. What I would suggest that the Everguild changes for Iscandar Kon is that we should remove the Artifice and instead give him a rally. Choose a non-ephemeral stratagem that you played this game and add it to your hand. It costs half. Now, why is this good? This is good because, first of all, you can actually combo with this really well, and this also makes you think like what kind of stratagems you want to fill your deck up with, because if you basically run a lot of low-cost stratagems, you might not really get a lot of value from this. But on the other hand, you could get double Draconian or double Helldrake Strike, but since it only reduces the cost by half, you cannot play those stratagems like instantly. But let's say you play Iscandar Kon, you get a Helldrake Strike which costs 3 energy and you keep it in your hand. The next turn you can play a unit plus do a Helldrake Strike for cheap. So this would definitely make Iscandar Kon a worthwhile unit. Now, I don't think that it would be overpowered at all, because it's still, in a lot of cases, do nothing on that turn, unless you get, for example, Spawn them off with it, or you just buff it with Camouflage or Vanguard. So you could have like an option of make this unit actually useful right on the turn that it is played, like give it Vanguard with Abaddon's Chosen, or give it Camouflage, so it can generate Abaddon's Chosen for you and you do that. Or you play a little bit slower and you get a tactic that you can use later on in the game for more value. So it would definitely not be overpowered, because once again, it costs a lot and it does not provide instant insane value. It could be very strong, but certainly something that would make this unit playable and not a meme that it is right now. So I think that this is one of the changes that I would certainly like to see. Now, the next one that I'm going to show you, I'm not too sure about, but I also like this change, to be fair, because this is another unit that has been a meme, and it kind of sucks that it's a meme because it's supposed to be like one of the best units, right? And that is none other than Avatar of Cain for the Eldar. And essentially right now what the Avatar is a 9 energy, 12, 6, 7 armor 2. Normal stats for sure, but the thing here is that, look at this. First of all, you have to waste 2 Spirit Stones to gain Blast 4, and you have to wait a turn, get a talent, and this talent is give +2/+2 to your units, and then for 2 more Spirit Stones, you can repeat this. So to get the full value of Avatar of Cain, not only do you have to play like a unit that essentially does nothing on the turn, but you also have to waste 4 Spirit Stones on top of that. This unit is absolutely shit. Like, you cannot... It's not even that good, even if you play it with a reduced cost. Like a Titan or a Knight would be better than that, because once again, it forces you to waste more Spirit Stones on it. Now, the way that I would change the Avatar of Cain is that I would remove the talent, absolutely. And what I would do is I would give it a rally. The blast would be like default on it, or you can leave it for 2 Spirit Stones, it doesn't matter. But I would give it rally, destroy all other troops, and deal 1 damage to your warlord for each enemy troop destroyed this way. So what this would do is that this would actually give it a very strong tempo swing, which would make it a very powerful late game unit. And on top of that, if you like clear a rock invasion or something, your warlord still takes like 8 damage on top, right? So it's like, it's something that penalizes you as well the more units you take out. It's still vulnerable to hard removal. It still doesn't give you Vanguard, so your warlord is still vulnerable and still damages your warlord. However, this would fill up the spot of the Eldar, which is basically their lack of hard removal, because whenever you drop a very strong late game unit like Archel Gurk, Eldar usually have a really hard time dealing with stuff like that. So this could actually give them an option to deal with it, while also making this unit like actually playable and actually a big threat on the battlefield, while also giving your opponent some way to counterplay it by, if you swarm the board and somebody plays Avatar of Cain, well, they might end up taking 5 to 8 damage, right? Which might be a big deal, because then that might put the enemy warlord in lethal range, right? So it's, imagine this like a unit that casts Targetized Sacrifice on everything else. And don't forget, this also takes out your own units, so this is the only unit that's going to be, your own troop, this is the only troop that is going to be remaining on the battlefield. Now, these are just simply some suggestions that I have, guys, because some of these suggestions have been heavily requested by the community, especially with the Chaos Terminator and the Venom Crawler. A lot of people want to see these changes. A lot of people want to see Kaon and Avatar and Kato Sicarius playable. There are some other ideas that are circulating on Discord as well, but I think it would be really nice if Everguild actually took some of these suggestions, because they have been listening lately, and just because they listened to the last suggestions, we've been having, as I said, we've been having an amazing patch. Like, even though, of course, there's like a lot of Abaddons running around and a lot of Uriels running around, it doesn't feel as unfair as it was fighting against the original Ultramarines and fighting against the Orcs. It just does not feel like you're forced to play one thing, else you cannot climb the ladder, right? So yeah, I think that it would be really good if Everguild takes some of these suggestions, because it could make some cards playable. It could like maybe even motivate people to play some different types of decks. And yeah, there's a lot more things, of course, that need to be changed, like Sylar Hexcore needs to change. On top of that, the Scarabs need to change, but there's room to see. There's room to do suggestions and see what Everguild does about that as well. But let's see first if they take a couple of suggestions from this video. I would love to see them take at least 1 or 2 of this, because, as I said, they've been listening to some suggestions, and it's been working for the good of the game for sure. Now, as for one thing, Sylar Hexcorn, I did not do any changes for him here, but I am going to mention that one of the things that could work really well for him is to get rid of the random factor, but to compensate for that, so he should be able to choose his ability. But of course, you should revert the Diabolical Strength to only give +1 attack, because +2 attack for 2 energy on the Warlord might be a little too much, because that will allow him to remove almost anything from the board in the early mid game. So just revert that, maybe make the Mark of Chaos or Dark Pact on him random as well, but at least make him choose which ability he wants to play on that turn. So yeah, there's room to talk about that as well. But in any case, guys, these are some of the changes that I would like to see. And if I see that Everguild picks up on a couple of them, I might actually make some changes for Nemesor and other stuff as well that really need some love. So thank you for watching, guys, and leave a comment and tell me what you think about it. Leave a comment, because if Everguild watch this video, they might also see the comments, and they should also know by your reaction whether these are changes that you want to see or changes that you don't want to see. So anyway, thank you for watching, gentlemen, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.